The Alaskan wilderness unfurled beneath the small Piper PA. Super Cub, like an endless quilt of white peaks and dark forests. John pressed his forehead to the window, watching the world fall away beneath them. This trip had been his idea, a break from the noise, a chance to breathe again. Sarah sat beside him, her hand resting lightly on his, while their 6-year-old daughter, Lily, bounced excitedly in her seat, pointing at every river and ridge, as if she were discovering them herself. Hank, the pilot, had flown these routes for decades in this very plane. He had the calm, weathered look of a man who trusted the sky more than the ground.
Clear day for flying. You picked a good one.
But an hour into the flight, the engine coughed once, twice, then sputtered into a silence that felt too big for the tiny cabin.
Hank's jaw tightened.
Stay buckled.
The plane dipped, shuddered, and the world outside tilted sharply. Sarah grabbed Lily's hand. John braced himself against the seat.
The descent was rough, but not violent. More like a long, uncontrolled slide. Hank guided the plane toward a semi-flat patch carved into the side of a towering mountain. Snow sprayed up around them as they skidded to a stop. When the plane finally settled, the only sound was the wind.
John turned. Hank was slumped forward, breathing but unresponsive, a dark bruise already forming along his temple. Sarah checked him carefully, her hands trembling, but gentle.
He's alive, but he needs help?
Help, however, was nowhere in sight.
The radio was shattered. The forest around them was dense, the mountain face rising like a wall. No open space, no clear line of sight, no way to signal.
John refused to sit still. He gathered broken pieces of the plane's fuselage and dragged them into the snow, arranging them into a crude cross.
It wasn't much, a small mark on a massive mountain, but it was something, a prayer in metal and ice.
That first night, the cold settled in with a quiet cruelty.
They huddled inside the tilted cabin, wrapped in blankets and spare jackets. Lily lay between her parents, her small body shivering despite their warmth. Daddy, is anyone coming?
People always come looking.
When a plane goes missing, they'll find us.
Lily nodded, but her eyes stayed open long after she pretended to sleep.
Outside, the wind howled like something alive.
Days blurred together.
They rationed food. They kept Hank warm, but we never stirred. They kept Lily calm with stories and songs at night. The cold crept in like a living thing.
On the 4th morning, John made a decision.
I'm going higher. If I can reach a ridge, maybe someone will see me.
Sarah didn't argue.
She helped him tie extra layers around his waist and kissed his forehead.
Come back.
After John disappeared into the trees, Sarah stood outside the plane for a long moment. The mountain loomed above her, silent and indifferent. She whispered a prayer, not dramatic, not desperate, just a mother's plea for strength. Then she went back inside and sat with Lily, who leaned against her shoulder. Lily asked, "Mommy, are you scared?" "A little, but being scared doesn't mean we stop trying," she answered. Lily nodded, as if filing that away for later. The climb was brutal. Snow hid loose rocks, ice disguised drops, but John pushed on, driven by the image of Lily's small face pressed against the plane window, waiting. Halfway up a narrow slope, his foot slipped. The world spun. He landed hard, pain shooting through his leg. When he tried to stand, the leg refused to hold him. A deep, bone-aching certainty settled in his chest. He wasn't walking back on his own. He shouted for Sarah, though he doubted she could hear him, but she did. When she appeared at the top of the slope, Lily waiting in the plane, John felt both relief and dread. "I'm okay," John said. The strain in his voice betrayed him. Sarah didn't waste time. She tied thick vines together, bracing herself against a tree, and slowly lowered John down the icy incline. Her breath came in sharp bursts, but her hands were steady. She used the vine rope to lower herself back down when she reached him. She cupped his face. "You're coming home," Sarah said. Together, slowly, painfully, they made it back to the plain. That night, the temperature dropped sharply. Frost crept along the inside of the windows. Sarah tucked Lily beneath every blanket they had, then sat beside John, who lay with his injured leg propped awkwardly. John took a deep breath and said, "You saved me." Sarah smiled, kissed from a distance, and said, "We save each other. That's how this works." For a moment, the mountain felt less cruel. Hope arrived the next morning in the distant thrum of helicopter blades. Lily was the first to hear it. She bolted outside, waving her arms, shouting into the wind. The helicopter circled once, then descended, lowering a rope. A man lowered himself, an EMT, and assessed the situation. "We can only take 2 at a time," he said. Sarah suggested they take John, Lily, and Hank. 2 weight limits, said the EMT. She explained that John was a small man, and Lily was only a child. John opened his mouth, but Sarah was already shaking her head. "Sarah, no, we stay together," John said. "You need a hospital. Lily needs you. Hank needs treatment. They'll be back in 2 hours," she said. 2 hours, the EMT said. "I promise." Sarah kissed Lily's forehead, then pressed her palm against John's cheek. "I'll see you soon," Sarah said. The helicopter lifted off, shrinking into the sky. Sarah watched until it disappeared behind the ridge. But the mountain had other plans. Clouds rolled in fast, swallowing the sun. Snow began to fall, soft at first, then heavy, then blinding. The storm raged for 3 days, burying the world in white. When the rescuers finally returned, the sky was clear again. The mountain was still, too still. They found Sarah inside the plane, sitting upright, her hands folded in her lap as if she had simply paused to rest. The cold had taken her quietly, without struggle. A mother's last act had been to wait.
The hospital room was warm, but John felt cold all the way through. He lay in the bed, staring at the ceiling tiles as if they were the only thing holding him to the earth. Nurses came and went. Doctors spoke to him. He heard none of it. He stopped eating, stopped answering questions, stopped taking the medicine they offered. Lily visited once, clinging to her grandmother's hand, but John couldn't bring himself to look at her. Every time he tried, he saw Sarah's face instead, her last smile, her hand pressed to the window as the helicopter lifted away. He had promised he'd see her soon. He had believed it. Now the weight of that broken promise pressed on his chest like a stone. On the 3rd day, the door swung open with a force that startled even the nurses. Sarah's mother, Margaret, stepped inside. Small, silver-haired, usually soft-spoken, but grief had carved something fierce into her posture. She walked straight to John's bedside. "Margaret," the nurse began. Margaret lifted a hand. "I need a moment with my son-in-law." The nurse hesitated, then slipped out, closing the door behind her. Margaret stood there for a long breath, staring at John. He didn't turn his head, didn't blink, didn't acknowledge her at all. And then, with a sharp, sudden motion, she slapped him. Not hard enough to injure, just hard enough to break through the fog. John's eyes snapped toward her, shocked. Her voice trembled, but it didn't waver. "My daughter gave her life so you could raise that little girl. She froze on that mountain waiting for you, and now you're giving up?" John swallowed, but no words came. "You think you're honoring her by wasting away?" she said. "You think she climbed down that slope, tied those vines, saved your life so you could lie here and quit?" Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't wipe them. "She loved you, she trusted you, she believed you'd take care of Lily, and right now that little girl is asking why her daddy won't talk to her." John's breath hitched. His chest tightened. Margaret leaned closer, her voice softening but losing none of its strength. "You don't get to stop, not after what Sarah did, not after what she gave." John closed his eyes.
and for the first time since the rescue, he let himself cry. Not the silent tears he'd shed in the helicopter, but deep, shaking sobs from somewhere hollowed out inside him. Margaret sat on the edge of the bed and took his hand. "Grieve her," she whispered. "Miss her break if you have to. But don't you dare leave Lily without a parent. Sarah didn't die for that." John nodded, barely, but it was enough, a crack in the ice. Margaret squeezed his hand once more. "When you're ready, your daughter is down the hall. She needs her father." She stood, straightened her coat, and walked out, leaving John staring at the doorway. The first doorway he'd looked toward since the mountain. And for the first time since the crash, he felt something other than despair. He felt responsibility. He felt love. He felt Sarah's hand on his cheek, telling him to come home. The door opened again, softer this time. Margaret stepped aside, and Lily slipped into the room, her little hands balled into fists at her sides. She looked smaller than she had on the mountain, as if the world had taken a piece of her childhood and hidden it away. John reached for her without thinking. Lily climbed onto the bed and pressed her face into his chest. The moment her small body touched his, something inside him broke loose. He wrapped his arms around her and held on as if she were the last warm thing in the world. They cried together, not loud, not dramatic, just two hearts trying to find each other again through the ache. "I miss Mommy," Lily whispered into his shirt. "I do too," John said, his voice cracking, more than anything. Margaret stood quietly by the window, giving them space. When Lily finally drifted into a soft, exhausted sleep against John's side, he looked up at Margaret. His voice was barely a breath. "What about Hank?" Margaret hesitated, then stepped closer. "He passed away yesterday morning. The doctors did everything they could." John closed his eyes, fresh grief washed over him. "Sarah, she could have come with me. Hank was already gone." Margaret shook her head gently. "No, don't do that to yourself." He opened his eyes, red and raw, but it's true. She came closer still, her voice steady, the voice of a mother who had already cried all her tears. "Listen to me. There is no greater gift than giving your life for a friend. Hank wasn't just a pilot. He was the man who tried to save your family. Sarah honored that she honored all of you." John swallowed hard, his throat tight. "She stayed because she believed in you," Margaret said. "She believed you'd raise Lily. She believed you'd live. Don't make her wrong." John looked down at his daughter, sleeping against him, her small hand curled into his hospital gown. And for the first time since the mountain, he felt something shift, not healing, not yet, but the faintest spark of purpose. A reason to breathe, a reason to stand again someday, a reason to live the life Sarah had saved. John recovered slowly, but he never truly returned to the man he had been before the mountain. Something in him had been carved out and replaced with a quiet, steady devotion. To Lily, to Sarah's memory, to the life he had been spared. Margaret tried, more than once, to nudge him toward companionship again. She'd bring it up gently at first, over coffee or during holidays. "You're still young," she'd say. "You deserve someone to share your days with." John would smile, polite but distant. "I had that," he'd answer. "Some folks get one great love, I'm one of them." Eventually, Margaret stopped trying. She understood Sarah had been the kind of woman a man didn't replace. Lily grew, slowly at first, Then all at once, the way children do when grief softens and life begins to fill in the empty spaces. She carried her mother's gentleness and her father's quiet strength. She learned to laugh again, to dream again, to trust the world again. And John was there for every step. He braided her hair before school. He sat through piano recitals and science fairs. He taught her how to drive on an old gravel road outside town. He walked her down the aisle on her wedding day, his limp still noticeable, but his smile steady. When Lily had her first child, a boy with Sarah's dark eyes, John held him and felt something warm bloom in his chest. A second chance, a continuation, a blessing he never expected to see. 2 more grandchildren followed, each one a reminder that life had kept moving, even when he thought his own had ended on that mountain. Sometimes, when the house was quiet and the children were asleep on the living room floor after a long day of play, John would sit in his old recliner and watch them breathe. 3 small lives that would never have existed without Sarah's choice. Her sacrifice had not just saved him and Lily. It had created a future, one she would never see, but one she had made possible. He never remarried, not because he was broken, but because he felt full of memories, full of gratitude, full of a love that didn't fade with time. He kept Sarah's wedding ring on a chain around his neck. He kept her picture on the nightstand. He kept her story alive for the grandchildren who grew up knowing the mountain not as a place of tragedy, but as the place where their grandmother's courage shone brightest. Sometimes, Lily would sit beside him on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the Arkansas hills. "Do you ever wish things had been different?" she'd ask. John would shake his head slowly. "I wish she'd lived, but I don't wish away what she gave us." Lily would lean her head on his shoulder, and they'd sit in silence, the kind of silence that feels like prayer. In the end, John understood something he hadn't been able to see in the hospital all those years ago. Sarah hadn't died on that mountain. Not really. She lived in Lily's smile. She lived in the grandchildren's laughter. She lived in every choice John made to keep going, even when it hurt. Her love had stretched across decades, shaping a family that would outlive both of them. And that, John believed, was the truest kind of immortality.